So this week I'm here with Kevin Young, and Kevin was the person that submitted Linda last week. And while we were doing our interview, she's told this really great story about how she signed up so she could take care of the planes that you were flying, which was was sweet. I was like, man, that's awesome. You hear these stories like that. I never heard one like that before. So you served in what branch of the military?
United States Navy.
Navy. And what did you do for the Navy?
I flew in P-3s. I was a Sensor 1 operator. I operated acoustic sensing gear on a P-3. We dropped sonobuoys in the ocean to track submarines.
Okay.
Usually we would use passive sonar.
Which is not the one that'll kill you if it comes. Like the ones that they shoot off the boats to keep divers away. Because I've heard about those, that sonar.
Yeah. Passive sonar is basically you're just dropping a hydrophone down in the water and listening for submarines.
Mm-hmm.
And we had gear that would print out basically just the background sea noise. And then you would start to see if a submarine was getting close, you'd start to see lines. And these lines would correspond to various things that operated on a sub,
mm-hmm.
like the main cooling pump on a Yankee class, which was the Russian ballistic missile submarine, the Yankee class. It had a main cooling pump that ran at 137 hertz.
So you knew exactly when it hit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. When you got a line at 137 hertz, you knew that you were sitting on a Yankees class submarine.
Yeah. It's kind of like with what I do. I can, since I do with a lot of audio stuff, and we look at the waveform. You know what I mean? And,
Mm-hmm.
and it's essentially the same thing, because I can almost see. I can see, especially if it's conversation or music, I can tell you what, by looking at what the waveform is, if it's a drum track or if it's a bass track, based on where it is on the spectrum, I can see it. And then vocally, if it's just like someone talking, I can tell you not what the word is by looking at it, because everyone's voice is different and that makes it different, but you can see where words fall. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
I guess essentially the same thing. That's really cool.
Basically. And, different subs had different lines at different frequencies. U.S. subs had different frequencies when we'd go out and track one of those for training purposes. You had a different set of lines that you'd look for. One time we were in the Sea of Japan. And just to let you know that the Russians know everything that we do, we got our monthly quals, which every month you were supposed to go out and track a U.S. submarine.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a specific set of things that he was supposed to do, like submerge and travel at a particular speed in any direction he wanted. And we had to track him. And then he was supposed to change course. Any change that he wanted, and keep going at that same speed, and we were supposed to keep tracking him. Well, that was our qualification as an air crew, and we were supposed to do that once every month. Well, one time we got all our quals off of a Russian Echo 2 submarine, which was an attack submarine. It's a kind of submarine that Russia would send to kill one of our ballistic missile submarines.
Okay.
He did everything exactly like a sub that we would have chased for our quals.
So
he did it everything. He would go down, he would run in a particular direction for a set amount of time, and then he would turn, and then he'd come back to the surface. And they even stopped and picked up a couple of our sauna buoys.
While they were out doing it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And when we landed, when we got back, two guys that I had never seen before in suits got on the airplane before we were on the taxiway. They stopped the airplane. These guys got on board. They took our mission tape. We had a magnetic tape that records everything that goes on in the airplane. They took those tapes. We never saw them again.
Yeah,
never saw those two guys again. Had never seen them before.
Yeah.
And never saw them again.
So you wonder, do you think, I mean, if the Russians knew what we were doing and how we did it, do you think they were trying to figure out if, like, they had planted information to see if that was a mole? You know what I mean? Do you get where I'm going? I mean, I guess it's all hearsay. Who knows? But that'd be kind of interesting to see, okay, we're going to plant information and see if this is our mole. And then they go back and they're like, yep, that's the dude. He did exactly what we thought he'd do.
Well, it could have been that, or it could have been that this Echo 2 had been following one of our submarines when we were doing quals, and knew, you know, because they keep a record of everything that goes on, and he knew, okay, this sub traveled for so far at a particular speed, and then he turned, and then he traveled, and then he surfaced, and then he went back down, and then he,
crazy.
And, well, like I said, he could have been following one of our nuclear submarines and had it all in his logs of exactly what they did, and they could hear us flying over them.
So they knew.
Yeah. Because that's how we'd mark a sauna buoy. Is, they'd fly down the sauna buoy field, and I could see the airplane fly over it. Just like you said, you can see drums or whatever. You can see the airplane and hear it fly over. And that hydrophone's probably a couple of 100 feet down in the ocean, but you could still hear the airplane fly over.
That's
that.
incredible.
And so, like I said, they were probably following one of our subs and knew what the quals were, and he just did it just to
screw with you guys.
Yeah, just to screw with us.
Just to show you you could.
Just to show you.
Did you ever get to go on a sub? Since you were kind of on the outside, you know what I mean? Because you never really hear guys in subs, but you never really hear about what you're explaining to me, what you guys do to aid the subs.
They offered, while we were on that deployment in Japan, they offered some of us a chance to go on a submarine.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I
It's like, I don't want to be in that tin can.
I've probably been on more ships than he
Really?
has. Yes.
That's funny.
I just couldn't imagine being, a couple of 100 feet under the surface, and it just didn't sound like something I wanted
It's the
to
same
do.
thing as being in a plane. Just one's gravity pushing you up, the other one's gravity pushing you down.
Yeah, but you can jump out of an airplane.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. Yeah, you can.
You can jump out of a sub too and float.
But you're going to
Hold your breath for a long time. That's cool. So, what made you want to sign up, or get into what you did for the Navy?
The reason I signed up for the Navy was because the year I was eligible for the draft, my draft number was 13.
Yeah.
And I figured I'm going to be hip deep in a rice paddy
If you
by
don't just
Christmas
create
if
your
I
own
don't.
destiny. Yeah. And that's what a lot
Pick
of
a
these
place.
guys did. Yep. And at least you were in control of where you're going.
Yeah, and I went in the Navy, and fortunately enough, I was intelligent enough. I don't want to brag or anything, but I was intelligent enough, and I did well enough on all the entrance exams that I got to basically write my own ticket when I went in.
That's cool.
And I got to choose the field that I wanted to specialize in, And I chose that rate because I get flight pay.
Yep.
Even if I didn't fly, it's the only rate in the Navy still that gets flight pay even if you don't fly.
That's cool.
So, and at that time it was a fairly new rate, and advancement was, all you had to do was be able to sign your name at the top of the test, and they gave you the next rank.
That's cool.
When I got out, I was an E5. If I had stayed in, if she would have agreed to have married me before I got out,
Oh, you were going anyway.
I probably would have stayed in if she would have agreed to marry me before I got out.
Yeah.
I did.
And no, you didn't. We didn't get married until 2 years after I got out. But
You asked me 3 times. 3 times I said yes.
no, you said no. We wouldn't marry.
I said, go home and see your girlfriends.
I went home. None of the girlfriends were as good as her.
I got this side of it. I got her side too. That's funny. And that's pretty much what she said.
But anyway,
So when we got done with our interview last week, we started talking about stuff that you guys did after you got out, and it was just as incredible. So you guys raced planes, boats, and cars.
mostly cars. We raced cars for several years, the radio-controlled cars. Got pretty good at it.
Yeah.
I couldn't drive one across the street right now. But, you know, that was what? Gosh, it's been 15, 20 years since when we started out racing them on dirt. And had a little track out here.
Kansas.
It was somewhere just off of Kansas, and it was in it was the side of the old city landfill.
Okay.
It was a city park.
Yeah. Is that where is the city park now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the city allowed us to build a dirt track to race on out there, and we built the track and a stand for the drivers to stand on, and we raced out there, I don't know, several summers. And then we got into carpet racing and racing on asphalt and carpet, and that was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
And I don't know if there's still. I know you can go and buy cars at the RC shops here in Springfield, but I don't know whether they have an organization or not
You're still doing it.
that races them.
Video games probably killed that, I'm sure.
No, I think they still do it because they still have World of Wheels every January.
Yeah, but they didn't have the cars down there at the World of Wheels this year.
They have RC cars.
Were RC cars down there? Well, all right.
That's cool. So back to service. When you were in Japan, where were you stationed?
Iwakuni.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a Marine Air Base.
Yep.
And we flew out of there. The Marines flew DC-3s and jets. And I didn't actually see it, but I was on the plane when it happened. They fired up one of the DC-3s out on a flight line, and a screwdriver came flying out of the exhaust.
Safety check.
Yeah. One of the guys on the plane said he was looking out the window. He said, "I couldn't believe it." I said, "They started this thing up and the screwdriver came flying out of the exhaust."
It's like one of the astronauts was talking about, someone asked him what he was thinking about when they were going up to the moon, and the only thing he kept thinking was that every inch of this thing was built by the lowest bidder. You know what I mean? Let that sink in. But that's the case. You know, that's crazy. Well, that's cool, man. That's awesome.
And they still overcharge for every bit of it.
Oh God.
$50 toilet seats, and that was another thing that was always fun on the airplane. The AWs were in charge of emptying the pisser.
Yeah.
Okay. But we also had a regular toilet. Well, if you used that toilet, if you sat down and took a dump in that toilet, everybody on the plane would be right behind you because the first one in there had to empty it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was like hot potato. So you could hold it the longest.
So if you had to sit down and empty your bowels in that toilet, then believe me, everybody else on that plane was going to go in there.
You're the one that had to dump it.
Yep, you're the one that's got to dump
Tell
it.
them about the circuit.
You used it, huh?
Tell them about the circuit.
Yeah, tell me about the circuit.
What
The circuit.
flying on the circuit. Well, when we were in Iwakuni, we had what we called the circuit. And that was the best part of being on deployment over there. A young, unmarried man, because we flew from Iwakuni, Japan to the Philippines. Okay? The Philippines at that time, now there's not hardly any U.S. presence there, but at that time there was always a ton of sailors in town. Place crawling with hookers.
Oh, I bet. It's like Taiwan now.
Well,
Thailand.
Thailand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's where we flew when we left the Philippines.
We go to Thailand.
Was Thailand.
Yeah. I had my best friend in the Navy. Him and his buddies they'd go there every year for a week, every year, until he got married. And then that was that. But yeah, every year. And the stories he told me even now, and I'm talking like in the last 4 years, how crazy it is. But I'm not that type of guy, but he definitely is, and enjoyed it very much.
From there, we flew to Diego Garcia, which is a little atoll out in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It's owned by the British. It's now a major U.S. submarine base and an airfield, and they still fly in there. And at that time, the next leg was we flew to Bandar Abbas, Iran. The Shah was still in power. You want to talk about desolate country.
Oh, I bet.
Oh, that whole place. I wouldn't give you a nickel for the entire area of the world. It makes our desert Southwest look like the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
It does. There's nothing growing. It's just gray dirt. Okay? And every once in a while you'll see a little green line. That's a river. Runs down to the ocean. Okay? Or maybe a little spot of green out here in the middle of all the gray, and that's an oasis.
Yeah.
But other than that, there is nothing there.
Yeah. Huh.
And then we'd land there, we'd spend a week there, and then come back and spend 2 or 3 days at Diego Garcia. And then another week in Thailand, and another week in the Philippines, and we'd load the airplane up with San Miguel beer and fly back to Japan.
That's funny.
And in the barracks that we were stationed in, I was fortunate enough. When I got there, our crew and another group of guys, they put us in a it was just open barracks. They had like office dividers running in between bunks. We tore one of those out and had a big U-shaped deal with the only refrigerator in the place was in our cubicle. That was the beer mass.
Yeah.
I drank free beer the whole time I was in Japan and got $25 back at the end of the deployment after we sold the refrigerator to the next
And the next crew
crew
that's
that
coming in.
came in.
That's awesome. God, that's funny.
But we used to, I think we charged 25 cents a beer back then.
You made some good money then. Or
Yeah.
just bought more beer.
Well, we just bought more beer. It was just, yeah, we were just there, you know, just to keep, just enough money to keep the beer mess operating.
Yeah.
And
Is there anything else?
all the beer you could drink.
Make the best of what you got, right?
Yeah.
That's it. I guess the moral of the story. Well, our food's here, so I don't want to take too much longer. Thank you for your service, and both of you guys. Awesome story, and thanks for coming out to lunch with me today.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate it. And you can go ahead and shut the mic off because the whole time